guys, how are you? I hope you're doing well. I am well myself, albeit a bit late than I like to send these videos or post these videos. And today I want to talk to diaspora people. And when it comes to diaspora people, man, I just feel a type of way because I feel like diaspora people have gone through so much. Like, no one will ever know until they do the journey. And sometimes I just want to handle you with gloved hands, because there's just so much that diaspora people have gone through. And there's a lot of trauma that is shown, or that is seen, or that is felt, or sensed when you deal with us. But people ignore that a lot because uh, people feel like they have sent us for here for one thing and one thing only, to cater for their needs. And it seems like nobody cares for us, yeah? And I say us, although sometimes I feel like I just came yesterday, and having come here and found people who have been here for a long while. And I realized even somebody who came a year before you would still treat you like you're new, yeah, because they've been ahead of you in a way. They've learned some things ahead of you, yeah. And so there's always a divide, yeah. And looking at all this, yeah, and look, I've had a lot of time to just look and feel, and I now at this point just thank God for the journey He's taken me through. And there were things, man, I got into, and even the kind of businesses I do, or the kind of interactions I've had with our people, the migrants abroad. And I feel like God just made it happen so I could interact with people and see, because He needed me to learn some things. And in that moment, I wasn't feeling it, I wasn't recognizing what He was doing. But looking back, I've seen a lot, yeah. And because I've been taught, yeah, and trained in so many things, I realized that at the end of all these observations, yeah, or not even at the end, just along the way, you realize just what has happened. And actually, after doing a very difficult journey, because I told you mine has been difficult, yeah, so just coming here and not and things not just being smooth, yeah, having to go through some things, yeah, having to make great sacrifices, including being away from my kids for a time, just going through all those things so that I could learn and feel and understand, and also going through the trauma, and also just facing people with that. Of course, there's a way you come across, and people really see it, and you're a big red flag. And then God allows you now to come to a place where you're able to observe others, and you realize, oh my God, this could have been it. And while so many people may not recognize it or admit it, because we always want to appear strong and mighty in the land, you realize people have been beaten blue and black in this journey. And I think it's time that people who God has given the ability to be so well spoken and expressive, it's time they start communicating that. And I see a lot of that happening, yeah. And sometimes I feel like it's not in my place to speak like that, because I understand when God gives some sort of a leadership, because this is a leadership role in its own. And it scares me sometimes, because I'm like, how am I going to speak and be heard when I don't have that ability, yeah? And I keep thinking about Moses, and the guy must have had a very hard time, and that is why he got into people pleasing, yeah, striking that rock, so that you see, even Moses has some power in him, yeah, and ended up angering God in so many ways, yeah. But God, having said that, I want you to know, and I know that the people who this is meant for will understand. And I I was thinking, just since this message came to me, I was thinking how my people, the Gikoyo, it's very few who are eloquent, yeah? And I noticed, because I was raised in a city, it's very difficult when you grow up in a city to really have a good command of your language, yeah, of your tribal language. And so I never used to speak Kikuyu well, but I do speak it, yeah, because we used to speak it a lot at home, yeah. But I realized that when I speak to some people, when I come across some people, because they know through my name that I'm Gikuyu, they go ahead and start speaking Kikuyu, you know, and it comes as a shock because while it's a really, it feels really good to speak your language, it still comes as a shock because you realize that there's that sense of belonging that you want to feel and somebody also is seeking it, yeah. And so here, you don't want to give yourself a headache speaking another language. And I'm saying all this to say that sometimes God would allow somebody like me to speak. I'm not qualified in any way. And he would allow somebody like me to speak because it would be so relatable to people who have issues speaking and being understood, like being understood by what they mean, yeah. So speaking and for it to be understood just how you want. And I feel like my journey is unique in that when I did the journey, because my husband had done the journey before me for a whole 7 years, yeah, and it's coming to 7 years for me. I understood some things that he used to say, but when I came here and just tasted that life, I felt it's up to me to explain very clearly to people, especially back home, that this life is like this, yeah. So there's so much joy, there's a feeling of achievement that you've made it here and that things are going to work out, yeah. And so you want to share that as well as the difficulties, but people refuse to hear. They just want a piece of that. And I felt like there's so much tug and pull. And if you're not careful, you'll find yourself lost in the midst of all that, yeah. So you're trying to assimilate, you're trying to settle, you're trying to make something of yourself, and you realize that you're not at par with the people that you left behind. I've spoken about this so many times, but when you know that a lot of people are going through it, you actually feel their pain, yeah. And so you realize, like, a lot of kids now, Gen Z, they're not to be played with, yeah. And they'll call people out, they'll call their aunties out and their uncles, yeah. So like, nini unafanya huko if you can't send us money, or stop telling us this and that, you know. And you realize there's no talking to them. The only thing you can be is authentic. And I realized that people in the past did this thing where it was like buying that place, buying your place, yeah, buying belonging, buying your voice, actually, just to be able to speak and be heard in family. It's very unfortunate that when you leave for a place like this, because of the things that we know, because the things we think about, and all the dreams we've had of coming here and making it, you will never go back home and be the same. You'll never be at par with people. You may do so much and still never be able to belong, never be able to be understood. You may give what you think is a lot, yeah, like you've done good, and the next day somebody is asking for more. I was listening to some videos, I was watching some videos of people talking about their experiences, and this lady said that she went back home with her daughter to visit after 25 years of sending money home, just making sure that everyone was okay. And it's not about money that I'm trying to talk about. And for everything that she did, for every meal that was eaten, she was expected to pay. For every time she was away and they bought her kid, whether it was a packet of juice or elastoplast or something, she was made to pay. For every trip they would go somewhere, she was expected to gas, the car, or to fuel the car. And slowly she realized she was getting very angry and even bitter, because she felt like, I've done so much for these people. How dare they not do the same, and welcome me with open arms, help me, feel the warmth of being home and all that. But it's like you have to pay for everything because you went to that land where everything where there's more, right? And nobody thinks about the fact that this is still where you live, this is where you spend. So even if you make more, the living standard is so much higher. And at the risk of sounding like I'm talking about the divide coming only because of money, a lot of people have felt this. And the pain of just losing that connection with people, and you know, somebody not even realizing that you're starting from scratch from when you come. It's just difficult, because you realize that nobody considers you anymore, and you have to defend yourself in everything. And before you realize that, oh my God, this is my life and my children's life, and I have to do also for me, you will realize that your kids even got bitter and forgot about you, because while you were trying to fulfill everybody else's desire and prove that you're not bad, things happen to your children, yeah? And so you find it's so hard to even maintain your kids here. They get into drug habits, or they are bitter and separated from you. There's just distance developing. People have lost marriages, and it comes like this is normal. When you go abroad, it's normal to lose marriages, because especially people don't understand. And I think at that point, I feel lucky that my husband came first, yeah? Because had I come first, and then he comes with all that Okenyaness, where men don't even want to help at home, you know, change diaper, what? You know, maybe it's God's grand plan that you didn't come here when our kids were small. Granted, my hubby has always been dishy-washy and helpful, but just so many things have happened to people, and they ended up being bitter, and people are not even sharing their stories because they feel ashamed, and they feel like they're the only ones who are going through, yeah? So I'm just starting this video like that to say that I feel you. And even though I've felt late coming here, and I've felt confused and lost sometimes, and when I came into my own, I felt very conflicted in how I would communicate what I've learned, and how I would establish myself, and also just communicate that, you know, it's not how people see. I feel lucky still that I've come at this point, and at this point in life where people are speaking, there's social media, there's all that. And even though that people won't get to understand, whatever you say may be repeated by somebody else, and they'll be like, what? And you know, so and so said that, and perhaps we didn't believe her at the time, yeah? But anyway, I want to talk to you guys, and I want to tell you, because a lot of people have forgotten, and a lot of people have gotten into things that led them, so to speak, into sinning, and just removing themselves away from God in the way, or removing themselves from their purpose, yeah? And you find that people who are supposed to lift the people who come, by the time the people who are supposed to be helped so that they can be a help, because God does not send you strong people, he sends you weak people. Like the case of Elijah, he was sent to a woman who was a widow, and this woman may have been expecting help from, you know, a strong person, but here comes somebody she's supposed to feed, yeah? So the way God works is very different from how we think, yeah? We are always expecting that God, while you're going through something, God will send a strong and powerful person, yeah? But it's all in the word, yeah? Jesus said, as an example, you will ask me, when, Lord, did you ever come to me? And he will say, when that poor person came and asked for food, it was me, you know? And you did good by feeding them, or you did wrong by not feeding them, yeah? So you could be sent away from God's presence because of how you've handled some people, yeah? And there's just so many issues that people are dealing with, issues of guilt. And it's not like Nawanika, you guys, because me, I'm one of you, yeah? I've gone through all this, yeah? And I don't even know how my family would feel like I've done, yeah? Or all that, yeah? And even the people who have met me. But I feel like God placed me in a position where I was meant to observe, and there are places he allowed me to go, and places snatched me back from, and like looking back, I'm like, what was that it, yeah? Because a lot of times we find we try to find our own coping mechanism. And this is where I'm heading. I want to, you remember the last time I mentioned that we will read from the beginning of Genesis chapter 26, where Isaac deceives Abimelech. And if you go back 6 chapters or in chapter 20, you see the same thing, Abraham deceiving Abimelech and saying that his wife is his sister, yeah? And were it not for God warning Abimelech not to touch her, things would have gone so bad. And things still went very bad because God cursed the people of the land and they were not bearing kids, yeah? The women were no longer fertile and he sent disease. And it took a lot of forgiveness from Abraham to set things straight. But it so happens that sometimes when we want to survive and we want to belong, and sometimes you find somebody who even came before you will teach you some tricks, yeah, to survive, yeah, and then they hold it upon you because they've done that for you, yeah, and so it gets risky because people know you, and sometimes even you sharing your secrets and your journey, everything is turned against you, yeah, and it becomes like a very toxic environment. And you hear that people here are very lonely because you do not even know who to trust, yeah. And then whenever God now sends somebody to test you, yeah, somebody who you can rely on, it seems like it's everything, like they're everything you've gone through, everything negative, everything toxic that you've gone through, and so you just keep hampering, yeah. And it was crazy for me to see that that is what Isaac was doing whenever he went to a well, and these wells his father had paid for, yeah. So I need you to read from chapter 20 of Genesis and see just how, you know, how he did, yeah, with the wells, that all the wells that Isaac was coming through. And finally to Beersheba, where he gave animals and gave 7 extra, he let them go into the land. And Abimelech was like, why are you doing this? And he says, it's because I'm making a sacrifice because of this place. So he lived in Beersheba peacefully as his son, you know, after him. And there are things Abraham did that were very unique, and it's like he was God advised, yeah. Abraham, when he was going to bury Sarah, he refused to be given a free grave. He went to the people of the land, or the elders in the land, and said he wanted a particular cave to bury his wife Sarah. And they said, we'll give it to you free. And he totally refused. He insisted on paying. And at last, they wouldn't give him the price until at last he said, give me, how much is it? And this guy, I don't know, he's called F4. I can find him if I try. Ephron, yeah, he answered and said, it's 400 pieces of silver, yeah. But what is it among friends? I'll just give it to you for free. And Abraham completely refused and paid that 400 pieces of silver to bury Sarah so that it could be their burial site, yeah. So what in principle was he doing, or what in the spiritual principalities was he doing? He was owning a place so that he had legality to live there, yeah. And so many times we come and we set ourselves up in a way that we do not understand what the repercussions will be. When you're tight with someone, you can tell them all your secrets, not knowing that this person tomorrow will be an enemy. And I know it happens all over the world. A Kenyan watching this would be like, but hiyo kitu ni kawaida, you know, friends turn against friends. But think about it when you're in a new land and you're seeking to settle, and it can get very scary sometimes, yeah. So you hook up with someone, the normal hooking up, yeah, you become a friend to someone and they're showing you the ropes, yeah, and they know how the land is, and they know how toxic it can be and how confusing things are, yeah, and how scary, and maybe they're even in a very scary place, but you don't know. All you know when you come is that these people have made money. They must have a lot of money, yeah. And so you realize as you settle that that is not the case, yeah. And even if they had money and spent it on you and all that, if you did not pay back in a way, because payback is not the way people think. It's not like at 50-50, I'm 100% for the 100% that you are given. No, it is giving back in a way, yeah? So perhaps somebody will give you something, and you cook them a meal, you know. In the spiritual realm, you've given back because you've spent your blood and sweat. And I don't want to get too much into this lest somebody feels like I'm quoting them. But what I'm saying is that when you go to a place, and you find those people, and sometimes you are led into doing an Isaac or doing an Abraham kind of act, yeah, where you are not 100% following the law of the land, and people know it, you know, so they have that on you, right? But that is not the issue. I want to read this so you understand what I am saying. Sometimes we come here and do an Isaac. I'm saying doing an Isaac because everybody who I'm talking to and who is supposed to hear this understands what I am saying and what they have done in order to settle, yeah? And so, because of what you did in order to settle for whatever thing that you did that was not okay or was not right, like the way Isaac did, and lied to Abimelech that this was my sister. And because he was desperate to settle in this land, he lied that this was my sister, and that they could have done what? They could have been or gone with Rebecca. Yeah, so they could have touched Rebecca and they ended up being cast because God had set these lives up for Abraham and his generations. Yeah, so Rebecca, Isaac's wife, was precious in the sight of God. She could not be touched by somebody else, right? But Isaac, because he wanted to settle here, he did not care. Or whether he cared, he did not want to be found out because he felt like he could be in danger. At that moment, forgetting that the Lord who allowed him to come this far would be able to protect him. Do you get it? So many things we get into in the new land, yeah, and we make mistakes that we do things that God would not approve. And why do we do that? Because we want to fit in. We want to do things in the land. We want to profit in some way, yeah, make some money, you know, get some papers. I want you to know that I'm not condemning you. And because we have come this far and done the very things that we have done in order to belong, in order to survive, in order to settle, you find that years have gone by and you're not okay, right? You're worried, and whenever curses are spoken, like the Deuteronomy 28 curses, you freak out because, or you panic. You panic because you're thinking, this is surely me. I left God, yeah, while I was hanging out with these people. These people know my secrets. I cannot speak. You are in a really bad place. Negative, toxic. And now, because it is so hard and it's squeezing you in so many ways, in so many places, you become very toxic yourself because there's so much you're hiding, yeah? And I'm speaking as one of you. Of course, there's, you know, the other day I was in a situation, yeah? Good. And I'm a texter, and I encourage people to text me because how I do things, I like to simplify things, yeah? And sometimes because of the things I do, I cannot accept calls, yeah? I cannot just, you know, speak on the phone, especially for long. Sometimes I can speak, sometimes I will make time, yeah? But I encourage people to text because I always, like, I want people to understand I've created the discipline where if I find your message, I will, not only will I respond, I will go the extra mile and just give you all the information you need, yeah? But there's just that need to connect and just know, you know who you're speaking to, know their vibe and all that, yeah? People feel like they can understand your vibe better on a call, but some of us are really serious texters because you know, you've seen these businesses where they're structured in a way that everything is online or everything is automated because they don't have the people to deal with the customers, yeah? So not only in business, but sometimes I encourage texting because I'm not able to give as much time on a call. But really, it's because I'm a texter. I discovered that late in life, and I feel like uh, when texting, you give each other ample time to think about something and respond, yeah, and you know, so that when you come back to them, you have a really good full message, or everything is documented, so that when you're going to do that thing, you're able to do it without bugging them again. Like, what did you say on the call? I forgot, yeah? Or I wasn't in a place where I could take notes or something like that. I hope that explanation suffices, yeah? But so, Isaac, let's just read, because maybe it will help if we read the scripture. So Genesis 26, a severe famine now struck the land, as had happened before in Abraham's time. So Isaac moved to Gerar, where Abimelech, king of the Philippines, lived. The Lord appeared to Isaac and said, "Do not go down to Egypt, but do as I tell you. Live here as a foreigner in this land, and I will be with you and bless you. I hereby confirm that I will give you all this land to you and your descendants, just as I solemnly promised Abraham." That is very important. Your father, I will cause your descendants to become as numerous as the stars in the sky. And I want to stop a little just to tell you that everybody who has come abroad and come in the way that God promised them this, it was always in their heart. They could tell, and they kept agitating for it, and it became a reality. But when you came here, like all those issues of mentioned, a lot changed, and a lot changed in you, yeah. You have been deceived, you have been even neglected, yeah, and even forgotten in some circles, so that you end up now, because you want to be in control, and because you always envisioned this as the place that will raise your status. Because remember, a lot of the people who are chosen, you know, from their families to come, or to be separated and to come to a place like this, so that God can use them to establish a thing or start, you know, generations here. Sometimes they are the weakest link in any group, yeah, where they come from. Sometimes they are the last born, they are the Joseph, yeah, they are the David, forgotten, until God raises you in this manner, and you're thinking, this is it. Now I'm where God wants me to be. He will show people the thing I always felt, that I'm special. Now he will show people, they will recognize that I'm special. But you come here and all that changes, you know, you feel, despite everything that you know, despite everything you feel you can do, despite all your gifts and talents that God is preparing to bring you in front of kings with, and the kings now you're thinking are the white people that you find here that will help you, elevate you, like you've seen in days past, that, you know, some people were helped by white people. That does not become your reality, and the people you're trying to connect with are hurting you, you know. And you see that this thing happens where you have to remove yourself from people. And while that is a process, and while God is healing you and is going to connect you with great and mighty men who've gone through the process, hurt and healed, so that when you come together in that, in that version of yourselves where you're healed, you'll be able to do amazing things that God called you to do. But the process ni lazima, you have to go through it. You have to, you know, and you're going through it, you know, you're going through it while still establishing yourself, building a career, taking care of your kids, you know. And sometimes you're in a marriage, it's falling apart, or you're in a long distance marriage and it's crazy hard, yeah. And you will fight and not even be able to make up, yeah. I've gone through long distance marriage. It is quite difficult, yeah. But I look back and I'm thinking, God, you really taught us, you know. And while we thought everything would be lost, you kept everything in your own way. You made everything beautiful in your own time, yeah. And while there may be so much fear because of the things you see, the things you hear, the things you experience, God still intends to use you. Now, this is what I'm trying to say, or this is the crux of the matter. Despite everything that has happened and you're feeling that guilt, remember the promises that God made to Abraham and Isaac. When God pulled you from wherever you are to another place, and it could be Ushago to the city, whatever, that God has taken you to start a new life, yeah? God called you with a purpose. And while you may feel like you have messed up so much, in every way, yeah? Some people have even trouble with the law of the land, yeah? You've gone against the law. You've done crazy things just to settle, yeah? And now you feel like, I don't belong anywhere, or I don't belong with anybody. I want you to know that everything was very, very intentional. God knew what you would go through, and sometimes we forget it's God. We are so hard on ourselves. We are blaming ourselves so hard. We are so guilty and carrying so much guilt, and we forget that God allowed it to happen. There's nowhere you would be if God did not allow it. Granted, so many times, like I don't even think God would have preferred for Abraham and his son Isaac to lie, you know, to lie to these people. But he did not stop them. When they were thinking of lying, when they were concocting this lie, he did not stop them. He let them go through it, yeah? And perhaps he wanted to show his might, that he could rescue his people from there. Or just show the Abimelechs and the Pharaohs that these are my people, you do not touch them. You understand? But it's not right that we should continue to do wrong so that God may save us. But should we do that? Because we are called for a very tough purpose. I always say, the people who have crossed over have gone through things that they have to heal from. It's been hard, it's been difficult. And I'm looking at my kids, at what the ages they've come through, they've come here. They're friends of ours who came just as early, yeah? And when we came here, we were so excited to meet them again. But due to what they've gone through, they couldn't meet you, you know, in the same place, in the same way. People have grown, they have changed, you know? And I keep telling my kids, in another maybe 10, 20 years, your friends will come, you know? It will not be the same as the way we used to know them. In high school, we were so tight with our friends, yeah? It's no longer the same. You're lucky if you have one friend that you can relate to the way you used to in high school, yeah? And so you find yourself, there's a time that God will allow you to go so far to settle in that land, and then he starts drawing you back. Like you saw Isaac, whenever he was digging those wells in order to settle in Gerar, because God asked him not to go into Egypt, the people of the land would fight over those wells as if they belonged to them. And he would just move away because he was like, these ones, I'm not fighting. Let me tell you. And I know the people abroad can relate to this. I know there are a few people who watch me who are abroad, yeah? Every time you are in a situation where it's like there's conflict, you just want to leave it, you know? And sometimes it hurts to leave it because you feel like you've worked for the thing, you know? You've worked it, it's been your sweat and blood. But I want you to know that God knows it's your sweat and blood, yeah? Nothing is going to waste. Nothing that you have worked for is going to be wasted. I think in my third video, I told you guys how oh God. And when I came to realize this, I cried because it was painful. When I went to Canada, I was able to see how far my husband used to walk just to send me money. How far he used to walk to the Western Union, yeah? And when you imagine the weather in St. John's, and sometimes I would be like, guys, sina pesa, I don't know, now that thing is needed tomorrow, I don't know what will happen. And with the time difference, because it's already late in Kenya, by the time these guys are waking up, it's tough. And maybe it's after school, I'm leaving a message, and he has to walk all the way to this place, and sometimes run because stores close early. Hey? And I didn't exactly go through that because I came at a time where you could send money from your account to via Western Union and all that. But I really walked, you know, I really tarmacked those streets of St. John's, and I found myself just asking for forgiveness, you know, because I did not understand. And while I was even asking for forgiveness, God forgive me, I had to ask for forgiveness from him too. Like, I did not understand, I did not see it, you know. And there's so much we do for our families that they do not see, you know, and it hurts. And sometimes you know that that is the only way you can keep your family by just doing all these things for them. And I realized that the more you do, sometimes like you could be doing a project that is very expensive. You're working, you're working paycheck to pay, you're living paycheck to make sure that that thing is fulfilled. But because you're doing it, people are like, now, oh, kumbe, they always had money. Yeah, they were just refusing. And now they keep loading so many financial burdens on you, and you're like, okay, we see what you're doing and what you're thinking, but seriously, I'm just human and I don't have anyone to go to. Yeah, I'm talking about finances because it's the only thing we can do. But do you know, aside from finances, there's so many things that I'm realizing that even people who are not smart, they are very good at manipulating. Sometimes that is the only thing you realize this person knows. They will manipulate. They will go to the streets. They will do crazy things, yeah, just to catch your attention in the most negative way, yeah. And then one time you fail, just one time, or you say you don't have it one time, they go against you like you never did anything, And I want to tell you that God does not want you to get bitter over these things. First of all, he did not send you to rescue anyone, yeah? Because he's a jealous God. He wants everybody to know him for him. Remember, I was in Kenya 7 years, and when things were so difficult, yeah, I had to turn to only God. Only him could rescue me, yeah? I could have thought all this time, yeah, if I never get the visa, let my husband come back so we can live here, But my husband had this plan that these kids will come and study here because it's so much easier. And also, when you haven't had a job in Kenya, you don't want to go back to that, And it doesn't mean that it's easy to work here. It is so difficult. Sometimes you face discrimination. Sometimes you feel like as a black person, or not even just a black person, because of language barriers, you cannot even express how you feel. So there are places and levels you will never reach because communication, right? And the things that you need to know. I have realized that even in workplaces, yeah, when you really look at it, some managers will be comfortable to just be them because they're able, they're much easily able to communicate among themselves and so make things happen faster, or they understand each other faster, They don't have to put all these things in consideration. But for you, they have to consider you, how you feel as a minority, yeah? Especially visible minorities like black people, So the journey is so difficult, but God knows, and God is sending a word of comfort. And while, how, like in overnight cations or just a church service, we can praise and sing and worship, and we go into the word, and now the pastor again says, it is time to now go into prayer again, as if you didn't pray enough. That happens a lot, especially in night vigils. The other week I told you to stop praying and start praising. Now I want you to go before God according to Isaiah chapter 1. And I want you to confess all these things that you have done that have left you feeling guilty. And now you're so afraid of connecting because you think that you will lose out, yeah? Every time you've tried to connect, it's ended up so badly, so negative, so toxic, yeah? And you're alone. And when you hear things like, oh, you cannot succeed alone, or you need people to go this far, you're like, okay, I'll never go that far. I want you to know that God has a lot prepared for you, including your people, your tribe, the people you need to go to the next level. And that is why you should not settle in places that you're not supposed to. When he tells you to leave from a place, do. Because sometimes God will tell you and you don't listen. He will show you and you don't see. He will cause you to dream and you're like, just telling tales. Yeah, I dreamt about this. Kumbe. No. He wants to talk to you directly. He wants you to understand him, and he wants you to do the necessary. Because when he called you, it was a very personal call, and it is connected to so many things and so many people. You cannot help your people until you go through the doors that you're supposed to, Some of you are just, carrying people into the places into very narrow doors. You have not made it through that door, but you're carrying people because you think that is what is expected of you. And then it becomes so toxic. And people are there asking you, who asked you to do this for us? You know? What gives you the right to talk to us anyhow? Granted, you shouldn't talk anyhow. Maintain the respect, but still, you realize that you're being pulled in all these directions and you don't know what to do because you feel like you lost the plot at some point. Yeah, you feel like you've done so much for people, and like I mentioned before, do not do anything unless God sends you. And even when God sends you, do not exceed, do not go beyond what you're supposed to do. Remember, that is disobedience, just like Saul did. You know, he went to war just like God instructed him, but he said, kill everything and everybody. He decided to save the king. You know, you cannot look at things at face value and decide this is what I'm going to do. So many people have been disappointed because of that. Yeah, you cannot look at somebody's, presence and just think, okay, this one I can work with. Or look at this person and just, disrespect them or treat them with contempt or like they're not thinking. Listen, you will never know just what abilities people have when they're quiet. And sometimes even when they speak, because like I said, some people do not have the ability to express themselves as they should, yeah? Or the eloquence, yeah? But God works with such people in a way that you cannot even imagine. So don't risk it, because you might end up paying prices that will take years, And it doesn't help that even if you block this person or stop talking to them because you feel like there's some injustice, or you gave so much that they didn't give back and you're wasting your time giving. Who asked you that thing that you're told? You shouldn't go beyond what you're called to do. And sometimes you're just supposed to wait, The process is long. You're supposed to know if this is coming from God. When you're connecting with these people, or you want these people to join you, do you really know if they're called for you, or they're there for a season? Some people get so mad when people leave from a place. I like, there's a place I used to work, and I loved that they had this resignation forms on the corridor. Like, if today you decide to resign, we are not stopping you, we are not keeping you. You can go. But some of us do not know how to do that. If somebody has to go, and they're going because they've been called somewhere else by God, they're supposed to do something else. They're called apart from you, But you get so bitter and you're like, people are always going through here. They're coming, they use me, and they go. Your people are supposed to be brought back. That's why you need to let go and trust that God who brought them, because you didn't even know them before you met them, He's going to bring them back with blessings. And that's the same way we should also let go of our kids when the time has come. And the reason why most people fear letting go is because they've treated you so badly. When us as parents have abused our children, we are so scared of letting them go because of what they will say, Because kids are, witnesses. But God is just, because God always knows when you've done your best, But each and every one of us has to work so hard to understand what is going on. You have some people for only a season. When they go, you're not allowed to just cast them and call them names, Say walikuwa kiringa, na vile walikuwa maskini, Some people even come here when you're new, and they're discussing how poor you are. You don't have anything, you're not going anywhere. They don't realize you just came. And while they've had all these things they've been doing, yours is just beginning, Everything that God sent you, nikavile, we say a baby is sent with their plates. That's the same way. A new person who is coming, beware, because they're only crossing your path, because it's very intentional. And when people come this way, there's just not so much time to interact sometimes. They're passing through, they're going through their process. God is going to do mighty things in their lives, and you can only belong. Just the same way, your children will only belong with you, or they will, you will be in their lives because of how you treated them when they could not, take care of themselves. That is the same way you'll belong in their lives. If you treated them good, they will remember. They will honor you, This process of being called great or like the Proverbs 31, that your children will arise and call you blessed. It's a process. They don't call you blessed every day. They don't call you blessed as you're living with them, you know. Sometimes you don't even see the things that you've instilled in them until they're gone. And they're like, wow, mom, you really tried. Wow, dad, I see what you are doing there, you know. People don't recognize until you're gone. So we have to stop making mistakes, yeah? And for everything that has gone down, let me tell you, even when you are alone, God is very intentional. He's coming to restore you, you know? You will have many happy days. Stop forcing it. Don't make parties with your people because you think this is it and end up sinning so much against God, removing yourself because you think you have this great crowd that you're hanging around with. You'd rather be alone and just do what God wants you to, you know? You see, like how Abraham was moving with Lot, yeah? And God had to stop it at some point. He never asked him to bring Lot along, you know? And when now they were fighting and they had to separate, he gave him the first dibs. Choose where you will go. People always choose better for themselves, you know? People given a choice will stomp all over your life, take the best things that you have, you know? And some people fight because of that, yeah? When some people are fighting about the best things you have, you're fighting and crying and, you know. Lot picked the land in the valley that looked very green and fertile. Abraham remained up in the mountain where they didn't seem like anything would grow, you know. And God still blessed him. That's the best place he could hear God even, you know. Rotero ne furahemu edurere kore kweda agedurera kedaine koreda koreonaga wekwega ifurahemwa kyabata gatora kere maine kemora dimane todoe orimwega. Let me tell you, when you left home, God took you out of your home with a purpose. Do not panic. Do not do an Abraham. Do not do an Isaac. And if you have, God is still on the throne and he cares about you. He's going to keep his promises, but now come to him. Let me stop this video. It's been long. I know you guys have understood it. I just feel it in my spirit, yeah? Here's Samo. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye, and love you. I care about you. I'm praying about you. You know, I'm praying for you. Thank you so much for being here. Bye-bye. See you on the next one.
Lord bless you and keep you. Make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Lord, turn